Hello there, and welcome to the first part in the series for creating a character rig inside Maya. In this particular section, we are just going to be talking about preparation and the things we should do before building a rig. First off, we'll go over the scene preparation and make sure we have a tidy workspace to move forward with. After that, we'll look over the character model itself and gain an understanding of the specific elements we'll need to include in our rig. So without any further ado, let's get started. Before I ever even start rigging, I like to set up my scene so that it's nice and comfortable to work in, and it saves a lot of time later on down the line. So the first thing you'll notice is that I've imported the character model, and I've got them all set up with textures and lighting and everything. And that's pure preference. I just like to have some color while I'm working to look at, and I also think it gives you a better idea of what the character is actually going to look like when it starts moving around and deforming when we actually start to rig the character. So overall, I just think it's nice. If you're not able to do that, it's not vital, but that's the first thing I like to do. Aside from making the scene look pretty, it's more important to have a functional workspace. So we want to make sure that it's very clean and there's nothing that might get in our way as we start to create a rig later on. To do that, you can check the outliner for all the objects in the scene. So there's a couple ways to access the outliner. One is by going up to the toolbar, clicking Windows, and finding the outliner button, and this will bring a floating window of the outliner. If you close that, the other way is to use these different layouts on the side here and selecting the half layout here. This will divide the screen in half, and you can put whatever panel you want here, whatever window. So you just click on the panels button in that window and go to the panels right here, and again you'll find the outliner. And now instead of a floating window, we have this convenient segregated window that's easier to access while we're working in the viewport, the 3D viewport. Now that we have the outliner open, we can actually see all the different subcomponents that make up our scene. In this case, there's a bunch of separate objects that the artist left behind from the modeling process. And these were probably handy at the time, but for the rigging purposes, they're not completely necessary. In some instances, you will want to have a model with separate pieces, but for our purposes, it's much more efficient to merge everything together and just separate things using the joints and the rigging techniques that we'll talk about later. Generally, it depends on what you're going to be using this model for in the game, so it's worth talking with your programmers and your other artists to make sure that you're going to be giving them a product that suits their needs, whether it has separate objects or it's all merged together. For this example, though, I'm pretty sure I'll be okay merging everything together. So what I'll do is go into the outliner here and find all the objects with these polygon icons next to them. That means it's geometry in the scene. So I'll take the top one and I'll hold Shift and select the bottom one. And now I've successfully selected all the models in the scene. Now that I have all these models selected, I want to combine them together. So going up here to the top left, I'm going to click on this drop down and select the modeling tool set. And then I can find the mesh drop down here and the combine option. And by clicking that, we'll see that we've combined everything together in the scene. Now when we select any part of the model, it's all one piece. However, Maya has a funny way of handling combining objects and doing things like that. And with this outliner open, you can see what it left behind. It left behind these history nodes that are pretty useless to us. And they just make this whole outliner a mess. Unfortunately, it's not super uncommon to be handed a model or a scene to work in and find that the outliner is just filled with tons and tons of these history nodes left behind. So it's good to know how to find them, what they are, know that they're not scary. You can delete them pretty easily. But before you start deleting these nodes with the delete key and suffering the repercussions, let me show you exactly what happens and explain why you shouldn't do that. So I'll start deleting some of these, and already you can start just seeing this poor dwarven warrior and his skin just getting so gross and distorted. And even parts of his model are disappearing, and it's just, frankly, it's just terrifying. So you don't want to do that. I'm going to undo all those changes because that's just awful. Undo back to normal. Come on. Okay, he's normal now. So instead of doing that, to remove these, you want to go to Edit up here in the toolbar and look down until you find Delete All by Type. And that'll bring out a little flyer window here, and you can just say Delete All by Type, History. And when you click that, it successfully removes all those nodes, those history nodes. So the reason why we were getting funny artifacts before was because those nodes were still being used by Maya. Maya was thinking that the separate beard model was linked to a certain material, and the separated pauldron model was linked to another material, and so on and so forth. So when we deleted those nodes, it didn't really know what exactly to do with those references anymore, and it started to connect things in unexpected ways. So by deleting history the correct way, we can maintain our model being merged together, and it still knows exactly where to put these materials. So when you import your model into an engine, it's still going to be able to understand which materials relate to which parts of the mesh. So we should be pretty okay with this one mesh here and all our materials still holding together.